The space station Orion Prime floated quietly above the blue-green planet of Lysera. Ships from dozens of worlds came and went, docking at its wide, gleaming ports. Its corridors were alive with a mix of humans and aliens, each speaking in strange, musical or harsh tones. For many, it was a place of opportunity and learning. For some, a place of mystery and worry. Among the humans stationed there was Mara, a young linguist with sharp brown eyes and hair tied neatly in a braid. She worked in the communication wing, a tall glass building filled with buzzing devices, floating holograms, and screens that flickered with alien text. Mara's job was both exciting and exhausting. She translated messages from civilizations humanity had barely met, hoping to prevent misunderstandings that could lead to disaster. One morning, Mara arrived at the lab with her usual cup of steaming coffee. She waved to her colleague, Ryan, a technician with a laugh that could echo across the entire floor. "Morning, Mara," Ryan said, sipping his drink. "You've got a new transmission from the Zitherans. They sent it last night." Mara's heart skipped. The Zitherans were a newly contacted species, known for their advanced technology and unpredictable behavior. No one really understood them yet. "Thanks," she said, settling at her console. "Let's see what they want this time." The screen blinked and a stream of strange symbols appeared. They glowed faintly, shifting in patterns that seemed almost alive. Mara frowned. "They keep using this symbol," she muttered. "It's not just letters or numbers. It's something else." Ryan peered over her shoulder. "You think it's a greeting? Or maybe a warning?" Mara shook her head. "Hard to tell. Their language is full of nuance. One small mistake and it could mean something entirely different." She focused on a short phrase in the middle of the message. Something about it sounded familiar. Mara repeated it aloud, trying to mimic the alien tones as best as she could. The instant the words left her lips, the room changed. The holographic screen flickered and a soft golden light filled the lab. Then a knock on the glass wall announced the presence of the Zitharan envoy, tall and slender, with luminous blue skin and eyes that shimmered like starlight. "Who said that?" the envoy asked, voice echoing strangely in the room. Mara froze. I did. I just repeated a phrase from your message." The envoy's eyes widened. Then unexpectedly a sound burst from their mouth. Laughter. It was melodic, almost musical, and it filled the entire lab. Mara blinked, unsure how to respond. "You, human, spoke the phrase of the hero of Zithera," the envoy said, still chuckling. "You have no idea what you just said." Mara's stomach dropped. "Hero of what?" The envoy tilted their head, studying her. Centuries ago, a Zitharan hero spoke this very phrase when facing impossible odds. It marked courage, defiance, and hope. And now you have spoken it, unknowing. Mara's mind raced. She had only read the symbols, trying to mimic the sound. She had no idea it carried such weight. I didn't know," she stammered. The envoy smiled warmly. "And that is what makes it human. You act without knowledge, yet your action carries meaning." Ryan shook his head, muttering under his breath. "This is going to be complicated." Mara felt a strange mix of fear and curiosity. She had wanted to understand alien languages, but she had never expected to accidentally invoke a historical legend. "What should I do now?" she asked, voice trembling. "You must learn," the envoy said simply. "The phrase is only the beginning. Understanding comes next." Over the next days, Mara could barely focus. Every free moment she pored over Zitharan texts, studying their symbols, sounds, and gestures. She learned about their history, their heroes, and the trials they faced. She discovered that the phrase she had spoken symbolized courage in moments of impossible odds, a declaration that one could stand alone and still change the world. Yet Mara kept thinking. She had only repeated it without meaning. How could a simple human unknown to them embody such a symbol? Her curiosity grew into determination. She decided that she needed to see Zithera for herself. If she could experience their culture firsthand, she might understand not only the phrase but also the people who treasured it. Her supervisors were hesitant. "It's risky," her chief, Lieutenant Kieran, said. "Zitherans are powerful. Misunderstandings can lead to conflict." "I know," Mara replied, "but I need to see it with my own eyes. I can't just study from a distance anymore." After long discussions, it was decided. Mara would join a diplomatic mission to Zithera, accompanied by a small team including Commander Jace, a human officer with a reputation for strict rules and sharp instincts. He was skeptical of Mara's plan but recognized her talent and insisted on keeping her safe. As the transport ship prepared to leave Orion Prime, Mara stared at the stars. She felt a thrill and a nervous flutter in her chest. "I have no idea what's waiting for me," she whispered to herself. "But I have to find out." The journey was long, with the ship gliding past clusters of stars and fields of glowing asteroids. Mara spent her time reading Zitharan histories, trying to memorize words and phrases that might help her survive and communicate once she arrived. One evening, as the ship drifted past a bright nebula, Commander Jace approached. "Mara," he said, leaning against the railing, "I need you to understand something. The Zitharans are unpredictable. You're not just a linguist, they'll see you as something more. Something symbolic." Mara looked at him puzzled. "I didn't ask for that. I just want to understand them." "And that's exactly why they'll notice you," Jace said, giving a rare, faint smile. "Humans are unpredictable too. Sometimes that's the strongest thing we have." Mara reflected on his words, feeling a spark of pride. Perhaps her species really could make a difference, even in a galaxy filled with beings far older and more advanced than humans. She didn't know it yet, but the phrase she had spoken would be the key that opened doors she never imagined existed. As Zithara grew closer in the viewport, Mara felt a mixture of excitement and fear. She had spoken words she didn't understand, and now she was about to step into a world where every step she took would be watched, every gesture measured and every word weighed. Yet deep down, she knew she was ready. For all the unknowns, all the dangers, and all the challenges, Mara was determined to meet them, because sometimes the wildest words spoken without meaning can change everything, and Mara was about to find out how. The transport ship hummed quietly as it descended toward Zithara's surface. Outside the viewport, the alien world sprawled beneath Mara like a living painting. Mountains glimmered with iridescent minerals, rivers shone in colors she had no names for, and vast cities stretched in geometrical patterns that seemed impossible to human eyes. Mara's excitement was mixed with nervous tension. This was her first time on an alien world. She had read every report, memorized every phrase she could, but nothing could prepare her for the reality of standing among the Zitharans themselves. Commander Jace stood beside her, silent and watchful. His presence was both comforting and frustrating. He had a way of making every situation feel like a military exercise, but Mara understood that he meant well. "Remember," he said, voice low, "these people are not like humans. Their culture, their reactions, everything is different. Watch, listen, and think before you act." "I know," Mara said, trying to steady her voice, "but I feel like they already expect me to act." Jace's eyes narrowed. "Exactly. That's why you have to be careful. Symbolism is stronger than words here." The ship's landing gear touched Zithara's surface with a soft thrum. Airlocks opened and a wave of slightly sweet metallic-scented air filled the cabin. Mara adjusted her translator device and stepped onto the platform, feeling the firm, oddly warm ground beneath her boots. She was greeted by a delegation of Zitharans, each taller than a human with smooth, shimmering skin that shifted in hue depending on their emotions. Their eyes glowed faintly and their movements were graceful, almost like a dance. Mara felt a shiver run down her spine. She was entering a world entirely unfamiliar. One of the Zitharans stepped forward. They had deep azure skin and golden eyes that sparkled like sunlight on water. "Welcome, Mara of Earth," they said in perfect common, the human-adapted language used for interstellar diplomacy. "You speak the words of the hero. Your presence honors Zithara." Mara swallowed nervously. I didn't mean to. I only repeated a phrase I received in a message." The Zitharan's gaze softened. "And yet you spoke it with the courage that the words demand. That is why you are here." Mara could barely believe it. Humans were known for bravery, for quick thinking, and for creativity, but she had never expected to be seen as a symbol. She glanced at Commander Jace, who gave her a slight nod of reassurance. Even he seemed impressed by the Zitharan's response. The delegation led Mara and the team to the city of Luthera, a place of shining towers and floating walkways. The air was filled with soft musical tones like a chorus of wind chimes, coming from structures Mara assumed were Zitharan communication devices. Every surface reflected light differently, creating a shifting kaleidoscope effect that made it difficult to focus. Mara felt overwhelmed, yet fascinated. She could barely imagine how she would begin to understand this culture. She realized that learning the language alone would not be enough. She needed to understand the people themselves. Over the next few days, Mara attended meetings, cultural demonstrations, and lessons in Zitharan history. She learned that their civilization prized intellect, bravery, and empathy above all else. Heroes were celebrated not only for great victories but for moral courage, standing for what was right, even against overwhelming odds. Every lesson reminded her of the phrase she had spoken. She had no idea what it meant when she first uttered it, but now she began to understand why it mattered. It symbolized the very essence of Zitharan ideals, and somehow, in her human way, she had spoken it with authenticity. One morning, Mara was invited to witness a ceremonial display in the central plaza of Luthera. Hundreds of Zitharans gathered, their shimmering bodies reflecting the sunlight. They demonstrated feats of skill, agility, and courage, ranging from intricate aerial maneuvers to demonstrations of mental discipline. A Zitharan elder approached Mara. "We wish to show you the trials of understanding," they said. "They are a way for one to truly experience Zitharan values. You will see what our heroes faced, and you may learn from their courage." Mara's heart raced. She had studied history and language, but trials of courage? She had never been tested in this way before. I will try," she said. The elder nodded. "Observe first. Then if you are ready, participate." The first trial involved navigating a complex labyrinth of light and sound. Paths shifted, walls moved, and illusions tested perception. Mara used her sharp mind, her observations of Zitharan patterns, and her intuition to find the correct path. She stumbled once or twice, but she persisted, recalling that the hero had faced unknown dangers with determination, just as she now did. Next, the trial tested moral choice. Mara was presented with a simulation of a disaster, an alien village trapped under a collapsed structure. She could choose to save some, all, or none, but every choice carried consequences in the simulation. She hesitated, her human empathy guiding her. She chose to save as many as possible, thinking creatively about how to protect them without causing more harm. Observers, both human and Zitharan, watched silently. When the simulation ended, the elder's eyes glimmered. "You understand? Courage is not only in action but in thought and compassion. You are learning the way of Zithara." Mara felt a mixture of relief and pride. She realized that her human qualities, curiosity, compassion, and determination, were exactly what the Zitharans valued. Her species' unpredictability, often seen as reckless, was now a strength in this new context. Commander Jace, who had been watching quietly, finally spoke. "You're doing better than I expected. Humans, you never fail to surprise me." Mara smiled, grateful for his words. "I just try to understand. That's all any of us can do, I think." Over the next few days, Mara continued her immersion. She participated in debates about ethics, engineering challenges, and cultural performances. Every experience taught her more about the Zitharans, their values, and the meaning behind the phrase she had accidentally spoken. She also began forming relationships. One Zitharan, named Leora, became a mentor and friend. Leora explained nuances Mara could not find in texts, how tone, posture, and even the way one moved could convey courage or respect. Mara realized that communication was far more than words. It was presence, intention, and honesty. One evening, Mara and Leora walked along a river that glowed faintly under the planet's twin moons. "You're not just a student, Mara," Leora said softly. "The phrase you spoke, it resonates because it was not forced. It came from your spirit. That is what Zitharans respect." Mara looked at the shimmering water, thinking of Earth, of her home, and of the journey that had brought her here. "I didn't know I was doing anything special," she admitted. "Sometimes what is wild and unintentional is the most truthful," Leora replied. "It is in these moments that heroes are made." Mara felt a warmth in her chest. For the first time, she truly understood the words she had spoken. They were not powerful because of history or tradition alone. They were powerful because they had been spoken sincerely, even unknowingly, by someone from another world. Her journey of understanding was only beginning, but Mara felt ready. Zithara was vast and complex, full of lessons, challenges, and mysteries. Yet she had discovered something profound, that humanity, even in its simplicity, could shine brightly in a galaxy filled with beings far older and more advanced. And Mara knew as she gazed at the glowing river and the twin moons, that this was only the first step. The trials ahead would test her further, not just in knowledge but in courage, empathy, and wisdom, because sometimes the wildest words, spoken without knowing their meaning, can open doors to worlds beyond imagination, and Mara was ready to step through. Mara awoke to the soft hum of Zithera's morning light streaming through her quarters. Today was different. Today she was to face her first real challenge in front of the Zitheran Council. Until now she had been learning, observing, and understanding. But now she would be tested, not just for knowledge, but for her courage, creativity, and empathy. Commander Jace entered her quarters quietly. "The Council will observe you," he said, voice calm but firm. "They will not be gentle. You need to stay alert." "I understand," Mara replied, tying her braid tighter. She could feel her nerves buzzing like electricity through her body. But she also felt a strange excitement. She had prepared for this moment more than she realized. They walked through the streets of Luthera to the council chambers, a vast open plaza surrounded by elegant towers that seemed to shimmer in the light. Hundreds of Zitherans had gathered, watching the human who had unwittingly spoken the legendary phrase. Mara's heart pounded, but she reminded herself, this was about understanding, not perfection. A tall Zitheran elder stepped forward. Their golden eyes reflected Mara's own nervous energy. "Mara of Earth," the elder said. "You have learned the symbols, observed the ways of Zithera, and shown curiosity. Now you must demonstrate what it truly means to act with courage and wisdom." The first challenge was immediately clear. A holographic projection appeared in the center of the plaza. It displayed a scenario, a collapsing city under a storm of alien energy storms, citizens trapped in rising waters, and creatures stranded on precarious ledges. Mara realized instantly that this was a test of strategy, resourcefulness, and empathy. She could have focused only on saving herself or a few of the holographic citizens, but Mara remembered Leora's words. Courage was not only in action but in thought and compassion. She studied the simulation carefully, noting patterns in the energy storms and paths the citizens could take. Using her intuition and observations of Zitheran technology, she devised a plan. With her hand on the control panel, she directed rescue pods, manipulated barriers, and created safe routes. The simulation shifted, testing her at every turn with unexpected dangers. Mara's pulse raced, but she adapted quickly, using creative solutions rather than brute force. When the simulation ended, the elder approached her. "You have shown wisdom and empathy," they said, their voice resonant and approving. "But courage must also be shown in the presence of real danger. The next trial is more personal." Mara's stomach tightened. She had prepared for tests of intellect, but personal courage, she didn't know what to expect. The next trial brought her into a vast arena. The walls of the chamber shifted, revealing alien terrain, cliffs, rivers of molten metal, and swirling winds of energy that defied gravity. Mara's mission was simple in instruction, but difficult in execution. Traverse the terrain and reach the center where a beacon awaited, symbolizing the heart of Zitheran courage. As she stepped forward, Commander Jace whispered, "Remember, think like a human. Use your strengths." "You can do this," Mara nodded and focused. She quickly discovered that Zitheran terrain challenged more than physical skill. It tested mental agility. Gravity shifted unpredictably, and the environment responded to hesitation. Mara learned to trust her instincts. When a molten river blocked her path, she observed its pattern and found a narrow, safe route. When winds threatened to push her off a cliff, she adjusted her balance, predicting the shifts rather than reacting blindly. During the trial, she noticed another human quality rising to the surface: adaptability. Zitherans were precise and planned, but Mara's unpredictability allowed her to solve problems they might never have considered. She began to realize why the elders valued humans despite, or perhaps because of, their unconventional methods. Halfway through, she encountered a simulation of citizens in peril on a high ledge. The path to the beacon was direct, but the trapped citizens required her help. Mara did not hesitate. She carefully calculated a rescue, saving them without compromising her own progress. She felt the surge of satisfaction that comes from doing the right thing, even when danger lurked. By the time she reached the beacon at the arena's center, she was exhausted, but exhilarated. The light from the beacon spread across the chamber, and a soft hum of approval filled the air. The elder stepped forward. You have demonstrated courage, intelligence, and empathy. You embody what the phrase you spoke represents. Human, you have proven that your species has a place among the stars. Mara's chest swelled with pride, but she also felt humility. She had spoken a phrase without meaning, yet it had guided her into becoming something more than she expected. She realized that true courage was not in knowing everything, but in taking action when knowledge was incomplete. As she rested after the trials, Mara reflected on what she had learned. Humans were unpredictable, yes, but that unpredictability was paired with creativity, empathy, and a willingness to act. Those traits made humans remarkable in a galaxy filled with precise, calculated civilizations. Commander Jace approached, his face unreadable at first. Then a faint smile broke through. I underestimated you, he admitted. Humans, you always find a way to surprise? Mara laughed softly. I guess that's what makes us useful. Jace nodded. Useful, yes, but also inspiring. Don't forget that. Others will see you now as more than just a visitor. Mara knew he was right. Word of her trials spread quickly throughout Luthera. Citizens whispered her name with admiration, and Zitharan children mimicked the gestures she had used to solve the simulations. She had become an unintentional symbol, bridging the gap between worlds not through force, but through human qualities that others could recognize and admire. Over the following days, Mara participated in additional exercises, each designed to test different aspects of courage and understanding. She navigated complex negotiations between Zitharan factions, resolved ethical dilemmas in simulations, and assisted in engineering tasks using principles from Earth science combined with Zitharan technology. Each task reinforced a growing realization. Her human perspective, often seen as unpredictable or unconventional, allowed her to succeed where others might have failed. She began to appreciate the strength her species possessed, not in sheer power, but in adaptability, empathy, and ingenuity. One evening, after another long day of trials, Mara and Leora sat overlooking the glowing city. You have done well, Leora said softly. Zitharans will speak of you for many cycles. But remember, trials are never over. Understanding is a journey, not a destination. Mara nodded, gazing at the sparkling towers. I understand now, she said. It isn't just about the phrase I spoke. It's about what I do with it, what I show to others, and how I act when no one expects me to. Leora smiled. Exactly. Courage and wisdom are not in words alone. They are in thought, action, and heart. Mara felt a sense of deep satisfaction. She had come to Zithara as a human who accidentally spoke a legendary phrase. Now she was becoming someone who truly understood its meaning. As she returned to her quarters that night, Mara thought about Earth, about the people she had left behind, and about the possibilities that awaited humanity among the stars. Her trials had shown her that humans could rise to challenges that seemed impossible, that even without knowing everything, humans could inspire, create, and lead. And she knew deep down that the greatest challenges were still ahead. Because it was one thing to succeed in simulations, another to navigate real conflicts, political intrigue, and crises. Yet Mara felt ready. She had faced fear, uncertainty, and moral dilemmas, and had emerged stronger and wiser. Humans were unpredictable. Yes, but sometimes unpredictability was the greatest strength of all. And Mara, unintentional hero though she was beginning to understand how wild words, courage, and action could change the fate of worlds. The morning sun of Zithara bathed the city of Luthera in a soft golden light. Mara stood on the balcony of her quarters, overlooking the shimmering towers and winding streets below. The air was filled with the quiet hum of Zitharan life, a gentle reminder that this world was vibrant, alive, and full of surprises. Today was the final day of her mission, the moment she had been anticipating with a mix of excitement and apprehension. The Zitharan Council had summoned her for one last demonstration, a culmination of all she had learned, all she had experienced, and all the courage she had shown. Commander Jace joined her silently. His expression was unreadable, but his eyes reflected a hint of pride. Today will be significant, he said. Not just for you, but for how humans are seen here. Mara nodded. I understand. I want to do right by them, by all of us. They made their way to the central plaza, which had been prepared for the event. Zitharans gathered in large numbers, their shimmering forms casting reflections on the polished floors. A grand holographic display projected symbols and images that depicted history, achievements, and heroic deeds. At the center stood the elder who had first introduced her to the trials. "Welcome, Mara of Earth," the elder said, voice resonating with authority and warmth. "You have studied our ways, faced our trials, and demonstrated courage, wisdom, and empathy. Today you will speak once more the phrase you unknowingly uttered, the phrase of the hero." Mara took a deep breath. She remembered that moment on Orion Prime, when she had spoken without knowing its meaning. This time, however, she understood. She understood the weight of the words, the history behind them, and the qualities they represented. "I will try," Mara said softly, stepping forward. The elder gestured for silence, and Mara repeated the phrase. Her voice was steady, deliberate, and full of understanding. The effect was immediate. The Zitherans around her paused, their eyes glowing brighter, their bodies shimmering with what Mara now realized was admiration and respect. The elder approached her. "You have spoken with understanding this time. The words were not merely sounds, they were a reflection of your actions, your heart, and your spirit. You have earned your place among Zithra's allies." Mara felt a warmth spread through her chest. She realized that the phrase's power had never been in the words themselves. It had been in what she had shown through her deeds. Courage, empathy, creativity, and determination, the true human qualities, were what mattered most. As the ceremony continued, Mara observed the Zitherans celebrating her achievements. Children mimicked her gestures, students practiced the strategies she had used in the trials, and citizens whispered stories of the human who had come from another world and embodied their ideals. Commander Jace stood beside her, watching the scene quietly. "You see what I meant?" he said. "Humans are unpredictable, yes, but our unpredictability is a strength. It's our creativity, our willingness to act, and our empathy that sets us apart." Mara smiled, feeling a deep sense of connection. "I think I understand now." The phrase, "It was never just about bravery. It's about what you do when no one expects you to, how you act with thought and care, and how you inspire others without realizing it." The elder then led Mara and the team to a chamber within the council building. Inside were ancient Zitharan records, simulations, and historical artifacts. Mara studied them with fascination, noting the parallels between their heroes and the humans she had read about from Earth. Though their worlds were different, the values they celebrated were similar: courage, wisdom, and the willingness to act in the face of uncertainty. "You see, Mara," Leora said, joining them in the chamber, "the phrase you spoke resonates because it represents a universal truth. Courage and understanding are not confined to one species. They exist wherever there is thought, empathy, and action." Mara nodded. "I feel honored to learn this, and I feel proud, not just for myself but for humanity." The rest of the day was filled with celebrations, discussions, and cultural exchanges. Mara shared Earth's history, technology, and stories of human bravery and creativity. The Zitherans listened with fascination, eager to learn from a species that had already shown them courage in unexpected ways. In the evening, as the twin moons of Zithara rose over the horizon, Mara walked with Leora along the rivers that glowed with soft light. "You've changed more than you realize," Leora said. "Zithrans will remember you not just for speaking the phrase, but for showing what it truly means." Mara looked at the water, reflecting on the journey that had brought her here. "I never intended to be a hero," she admitted. "I just spoke something wild, and now it has led me to understand more than I ever imagined." "That is often how change begins," Leora replied. "Small acts, seemingly random, can ripple through generations." Mara thought about Earth, about the people who had supported her, and about the potential humans had in the galaxy. She realized that being human was not about power or technology alone. It was about courage, creativity, and empathy. Those qualities allowed humans to face challenges, inspire others, and bridge worlds. As she prepared to return to Orion Prime, Mara knew she carried more than memories. She carried understanding, friendship, and a message of humanity's potential. Zithara had taught her that words could be powerful, but actions were stronger. It had shown her that even the smallest human gesture could resonate across worlds. Commander Jace joined her on the transport ship as it lifted from Zithara. "You did well," he said quietly. "You've proven what humans are capable of, and more importantly, You've shown that we can be trusted allies, not just observers. Mara nodded, looking back at the planet shrinking beneath them. It's more than I ever expected, she said. And I think humans have more to give than most beings realize. If we try, if we act with care and courage, we can make a real difference. The journey home was filled with reflection and quiet conversations. Mara shared her experiences with her colleagues, highlighting the lessons she had learned and the qualities that made humanity remarkable. She thought about the phrase she had spoken, now fully understood, and smiled. It was no longer just words, it was a symbol of action, integrity, and empathy. When they returned to Orion Prime, Mara was greeted with curiosity and admiration. Her colleagues listened eagerly as she recounted her experiences, not just the trials, but the insights she had gained about herself, humanity, and the galaxy. She realized that the journey had changed her. She was no longer just a linguist studying alien languages. She was an ambassador of human potential. Humans were unpredictable, yes, but their unpredictability, paired with courage, empathy, and ingenuity, made them a species capable of extraordinary achievements. In a quiet moment, Mara repeated the phrase once more, softly to herself. She smiled, knowing that words could carry power, but understanding, action, and intention carried even more. What had started as something wild had become a bridge between species, a lesson in courage, and a reminder of humanity's strength. As night fell on Orion Prime, Mara looked at the stars. Somewhere out there, civilizations were waiting, challenges were rising, and opportunities for understanding and bravery were endless. Humans had already begun to show their value in the galaxy, and Mara knew that this was only the beginning. The phrase she had spoken without knowing its meaning had led her to see the best of herself, and through her actions, the Zitherans had seen the best of humanity. And that, Mara realized, was the true meaning beyond words: to act with courage, empathy, and integrity no matter the world or species. Mara closed her eyes for a moment, feeling gratitude, pride, and hope. The galaxy was vast, full of mysteries and adventures, and humans had a place in it, not just as visitors, but as beings capable of inspiring change, bridging worlds, and standing courageously even when the outcome was unknown. And somewhere in the stars, she knew another phrase, another challenge, and another adventure awaited. But now, Mara was ready, carrying not just her knowledge but the understanding that humans, small, unpredictable, and determined, could leave a mark across the universe.